Now let's take a look at the day's other main global stories. And a 15-year-old girl has died after a suspension bridge collapsed in southern France. 2 more people are missing after at least 3 vehicles plunged around 20 metres into the River Tarn, north of Toulouse. Local authorities say the bridge was renovated 16 years ago. The United Nations says more than 7 million children worldwide are being held in detention in institutions, immigration centres, police custody and prisons. In a new report, it says children with mental health issues or disabilities are disproportionately affected. And Iranian officials say 12 people have been killed in 3 days of protests triggered by a steep rise in petrol prices. Other sources suggest the number of dead is higher. So let's return to our main story, the situation in Hong Kong. Another day of terrible scenes and violence, this time centred around the Polytechnic University, where hundreds of students are barricaded inside, surrounded by riot police. The police have told the protesters to surrender. Well, joining me now is one of the protesters from inside that university. Thank you for being with us here on the programme. Apologies to viewers for the pictures, but it is a very, very tense situation. Just give me an idea of what the last 24 hours has been like inside of there.
I mean, I have been trapped with my friend and all those students, first aid and all those media trapped inside the Polytechnic University for more than 30 hours. And our situation is we don't have the gas supplies and all those food is running out inside the canteen. I'm staying in the canteen. So we cannot go and then we are trapped inside. That is unreasonable situation done by the police.
We've seen some students trying to escape. Have you tried to get away?
In the morning, I have tried, but they shoot those tear gas and rubber bullet to force us to go back to the campus, and we cannot escape.
You talked about the police tactics, but we've seen students using petrol bombs, bow and arrows, bricks. I mean, it's right. Can you blame the police for using rubber bullets and tear gas faced with all of that?
I mean, all those action is starting from the peaceful protest, peaceful demonstration in Hong Kong. But later then, because the police force, we don't have a committee to watch out the police force, and then which force us to increase our power. I mean. Although we do, but I mean the police is real tough. I mean.
Let me ask you a final question, because China has been warning they won't sit by if Hong Kong becomes uncontrollable. How long are you prepared to stay in the university? The police have been saying you must surrender. Will you?
Yeah. For me, I wouldn't surrender. Because I would rather stay in here with all my brothers, because surrender is not us. Is a humanitarian crisis in Hong Kong done by the police. So many hurt and killed is nonsense. So we will never surrender.
Just one sentence. Are you scared?
Yeah, actually, I'm scared. I'm still studying in university. I should be able to hang out with my girlfriend to study and chill, but we can't. We just want to fight for freedom, you know. And right now, I don't know where to go, you know. I've been trapped here for almost 40 hours, and there's no food, not enough food, and there's no people for those supplies, you know.
Well, look, there we have to leave it. But thanks for joining us live on today's global programme. That just one student among the hundreds still barricaded inside that university campus. Well, let's continue to look at the situation there, look at the international ramifications. Let's speak to Baroness Natalie Bennett, who's the co-chair of the UK parliamentary group Westminster Friends of Hong Kong. Baroness Bennett, welcome here to the programme. How alarmed are you by the events we've been watching over the last 24 hours?
I think very, very disturbing. And I think we have to think of that protester we've just been hearing from and the many hundreds of others. And one of the reports I saw today was parents of estimated 100 school children, high school students who are there in those conditions. And the parents, of course, are terrified for their safety of their children. And many of us around the world are seeing our young people out on the streets as climate strikers. There in Hong Kong, we're seeing the same demographic group, the young people, they're fighting for the most sort of basic democratic rights and freedoms that they have the right to expect.
China's foreign ministry said earlier in the day no one should underestimate China's will to safeguard its sovereignty and Hong Kong's stability. How ominous would you say warnings like that are, and what should the international community be doing, do you think?
Well, I think we have, particularly in Britain, have a particular responsibility. We're parties to the joint declaration with China. That was something that was registered with the UN. It's an international treaty. We have responsibilities to stand up for the people who we handed over to Hong Kong all those years ago. That agrees the one country, two systems arrangement. It's supposed to guarantee the rights of the people in Hong Kong, which are clearly now under extreme threat. And in terms of the actual situation, I mean, there's a level of fear. I'm getting people contacting me all the time, both through social media, by email, and they're deeply fearful. The kind of echoes of things, the word Tiananmen, of course, keeps coming up again and again. And last night there was real fears about the potential that the Chinese army could be on the streets, could be attacking the Polytechnic University. And there really is a responsibility for the whole international community, for the UK in particular, to speak up and say this is not acceptable behaviour.
Except the Chinese, every time the UK does inch towards that or makes a comment, they are irritated. They remind the UK this is Chinese territory. You talked about your concerns. It's interesting, I was reading among some of the protesters, they cite what is happening to the Uyghurs in China as part of the reason why they're not prepared to surrender, because if they do surrender now, they think that's where they end up.
Well, there's huge fear. I mean, there's reports of up to 1 million people, Uyghurs, the Muslim minority, who've locked up in re-education camps. Tales of relatives from Western countries who are saying relatives have just disappeared in China. There's no reports on where they are. They can't go to authorities, do all the usual things you do, go to hospitals, go to the authorities, say, where are my relatives? And people are just disappearing. And we've also seen, I'm hearing lots of reports out of Hong Kong. There's a great deal of fear that very many unexplained apparent suicides, bodies are being found on the streets and in apartment blocks in Hong Kong. And so the fear is absolutely well-founded and understood. And I think we have to think that this is a situation where there are young people who are saying we want the rights we're supposed to be guaranteed by an international treaty, a treaty that Britain is a signatory to. Britain has every right to be speaking out here and every responsibility to be speaking out.
Natalie Bennett, we have to leave it there, but thanks for joining us on the programme.